What if everything you believed was right suddenly had to change? What if God asked you to step beyond your comfort, your culture, and everything you thought was acceptable? And what happens when a vision challenges not just your understanding, but your identity? In the book of Acts of the Apostles 10:9-23, we witness a moment that doesn't just affect one man, it reshapes the future of faith itself. This is the story of Peter's vision, a moment where heaven interrupts human boundaries and calls for something deeper than tradition. Peter was staying in Joppa at the house of Simon the tanner. Around noon, while others were preparing a meal, Peter went up to the roof to pray. It seems like an ordinary moment, quiet, routine, nothing dramatic, but often it's in these simple moments that something extraordinary begins. As Peter prayed, he became hungry, and while the food was being prepared, he fell into a trance. Then he saw something unexpected. Heaven opened, and a large sheet like a great cloth was being lowered down to earth by its four corners. Inside the sheet were all kinds of animals, not just the ones considered clean according to Jewish law, but also animals that were unclean, creatures that Peter had been taught his entire life to avoid. Then a voice spoke, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." Now pause for a moment. To us this might sound simple, but for Peter this was shocking. This wasn't just about food, this was about identity, about obedience, about everything he had known growing up. The dietary laws were not optional. They were a core part of Jewish life, a symbol of separation, of being set apart. And now, this voice was telling him to break that boundary. Peter's response was immediate. "Surely not, Lord," he said. "I have never eaten anything impure or unclean." There's something very human in that response. Even someone like Peter, who had walked with Jesus, who had seen miracles, who had experienced transformation, still struggled when something challenged his understanding. Sometimes we think faith means never questioning, never hesitating. But Peter shows us something real. Faith can include confusion. It can include resistance. It can include moments where what God is asking doesn't make sense at first. But the voice spoke again. "Do not call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then the sheet was taken back into heaven. Why 3 times? Because this wasn't a small message. This was something Peter needed to truly understand, something that would go against years of belief, culture, and habit. Peter was left wondering what the vision meant. He didn't immediately understand. He didn't have a clear explanation, just a powerful, confusing experience that challenged everything familiar. And right at that moment, something else was happening. The men sent by Cornelius had arrived. They were standing at the gate, asking for Peter. This is where everything begins to connect. While Peter was still thinking about the vision, the Spirit spoke to him. "Simon, 3 men are looking for you, so get up and go downstairs. Do not hesitate to go with them, for I have sent them." Again, notice the pattern. God doesn't explain everything. He gives direction. Go. Do not hesitate. Trust. Peter went down and met the men. "I'm the one you're looking for," he said. "Why have you come?" They explained. Cornelius had received a vision. An angel had told him to send for Peter. And now they were here. 2 visions, 2 people, 1 connection. This wasn't coincidence. This was alignment. God was working on both sides at the same time. Preparing Peter, preparing Cornelius, bringing them together for something that would break barriers. And here's where Peter had to make a decision. He could have refused. These men were Gentiles. According to tradition, associating closely with them, especially entering their home, was not something a devout Jew would normally do. It crossed boundaries, social, cultural, religious. But something had changed. The vision, the voice, the repetition. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. Peter didn't fully understand yet, but he knew enough to take the next step. So he invited the men into the house to be his guests. That alone was significant. It was the beginning of a shift, a quiet but powerful moment where Peter began to step beyond the lines he had always known. The next day he went with them, not with full clarity, but with willingness. And that's where this story becomes deeply personal. Because Peter's vision is not just about food. It's about perspective. It's about how we see others, how we define boundaries, how we decide who belongs and who doesn't. For Peter, the categories were clear, clean and unclean, us and them. But God was introducing something new, a different way of seeing, a broader understanding of his purpose. Sometimes the hardest thing is not believing in God. It's allowing God to change how we think, to challenge our assumptions, to expand our view. Peter had spent his entire life learning what was acceptable, and now in a single moment, God was asking him to reconsider. That's not easy. And if we're honest, we all have our own versions of this. Beliefs we've held onto for years, ways of seeing the world that feel normal, even unquestionable. And then something happens, a moment, a realization, a vision in our own way, that invites us to think differently. The question is, do we resist or do we listen? Peter didn't immediately understand, but he didn't shut it down either. He stayed with the question. He listened for guidance, and when the opportunity came, he acted. This is what growth looks like. Not instant perfection, but openness, willingness, courage to take a step, even when the path isn't fully clear. There's also something powerful about timing in this story. The vision didn't come randomly. It came at the exact moment when Peter needed to be prepared. Because what was about to happen next, meeting Cornelius, entering his home, witnessing what God was doing among the Gentiles, would require a completely new perspective. Without the vision, Peter might have refused. Without the vision, he might have stayed within his comfort zone. But the vision created a space for change. And sometimes that's what God does. He prepares us before the moment arrives. He speaks before the opportunity appears. He challenges us before the decision is required, so that when the time comes, we are ready. Peter's story reminds us that faith is not static. It grows, it expands, it evolves as we continue to walk with God. And sometimes that growth requires letting go of old assumptions. Not truth, but interpretation. Not faith, but limitation. Do not call anything impure that God has made clean. Those words echo beyond this moment. They speak into how we view others, how we define worth, how we draw lines between people. God was not just changing Peter's diet, he was changing his heart, expanding his understanding of who God's love is for, and that change would open the door for something much bigger. The message of Jesus moving beyond one group to reach the world. But it all started here on a rooftop, in a moment of prayer, with a vision that didn't make sense at first, and a man willing to listen, even when it challenged everything he knew. So maybe the question this story leaves us with is this: what if the thing you're resisting is the very thing meant to grow you? What if the discomfort you feel is part of a deeper transformation? What if God is trying to show you something new, but it requires you to let go of something old? Peter could have held on to his привычки, his habits, his traditions, without question, but instead he paused, he listened, he moved forward. And because of that, history shifted. A door opened that had been closed, a boundary was crossed that had been firmly in place, and the message of hope expanded in a way no one expected. Thank you for watching this video. If this message challenged you or made you think, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with others. Your support helps bring these powerful stories of faith and transformation to more people around the world.